Juan looked at his communication device for the third time that morning. The message was still there, glowing softly on the screen. 3 simple words that made his stomach twist. Silent dawn begins. He sat in his small office inside the massive Galactic Council building. Outside his window, ships from dozens of different worlds flew past. The Centaurians with their crystal ships that sparkled like diamonds. The Vorthak with their dark metal vessels that looked like flying mountains. The Kalari with their organic ships that seemed to breathe as they moved through space. But today, something was different. Juan noticed fewer human transport ships in the traffic lanes. Much fewer. Down the hall, Minji was packing her desk. She had worked for the integration department for 15 years. Her job was to help new species join the Galactic Council. She was good at it. She understood how different minds worked and how to make everyone feel welcome. Going somewhere? Asked Veltarix, her Centaurian supervisor. The tall crystal being's voice echoed like wind chimes. Taking some leave, Minji said simply. She did not mention that her leave request was for 50 years. She did not mention that she had already transferred all her files to the secure human network. She did not mention that this was goodbye forever. Veltarix nodded and walked away. To him, humans were useful but not important. They did good work, but they were replaceable. Every species in the Council thought this way. 3 systems away on the mining station orbiting Kepler 442b, Dejo was having his morning coffee. He had been drinking coffee in the same spot for 30 years. From his chair, he could see the massive fusion reactors that powered the station. He could see the automated mining rigs that pulled rare metals from the planet below. He could see the cargo ships that carried those metals to every corner of the galaxy. What the other species did not know was that Dejo had designed most of these systems. The Vorthak engineers thought they were in charge, but they only understood the basic controls. When something broke, they called Dejo. When efficiency dropped, they called Dejo. When new systems needed to be installed, they called Dejo. Today was different. Today, Dejo was shutting everything down. "Hey, human," called Groktar, the Vorthak station chief. "The 3rd reactor is making noise again." "I will look at it later," Dejo said. But he would not look at it later. In 2 hours, he would be on a transport ship heading to coordinates that no alien knew existed. Groktar grumbled and walked away. He never bothered to learn Dejo's name, even after 30 years. Back at the council building, the morning session was starting. High Counselor Vex Thanor from Centauri Prime called the meeting to order. His crystal body caught the light and threw rainbows across the chamber walls. "Today we discuss the new trade routes through the spiral arm," he announced. His voice was proud and commanding. What he did not know was that the human who calculated all the hyperspace routes was named Hyunwoo. What he did not know was that Hyunwoo had been working for 3 months to create new routes that would help human ships disappear without being tracked. What he did not know was that Hyunwoo had already left the building and would never return. In the data center beneath the council building, Nari was copying files. She had been the council's best data analyst for 8 years. She found patterns that others missed. She solved problems that stumped entire committees. The alien supervisors took credit for her work, but they never understood how she did it. Her fingers moved quickly across the holographic interface. Financial records, military reports, diplomatic messages, technology blueprints. Everything that might be useful to humanity's future was being quietly transferred to hidden servers. "Working late again?" asked Zinthara, a Kalari supervisor who passed by. "Just finishing some reports," Nari said with a smile. It was true. She was finishing reports. She was finishing 8 years of reports by making sure humanity would have copies of everything important. Zinthara nodded and kept walking. Like all the other aliens, she saw Nari as a useful tool, not as a person with her own goals and dreams. On the outer rim, Captain Donghyun was preparing his cargo ship for what looked like a routine supply run. The manifest showed medical supplies for a mining colony. The official records showed a flight plan to the Kepler system. The reality was different. His cargo hold was full of human families from 6 different colonies. His real destination was a place called New Haven, in a part of space that the galactic maps listed as empty. "Safe travels," said the Zentorian port controller as Donghyun's ship left the station. "Thank you," Donghyun replied politely. The controller would never know that this was the last human ship to leave this station. Tomorrow, when the aliens needed repairs or supplies or someone to solve their technical problems, there would be no humans left to call. Across the galaxy, the same scene was playing out on thousands of worlds. Humans were packing their things and leaving. They said goodbye to alien friends who had treated them well. They said nothing to alien supervisors who had treated them as servants. Dr. Sunhee finished her last research report on quantum field dynamics. Her Vorthak colleagues would publish it under their own names, as they always did. They did not know that she had left out the most important discovery. They did not know that the real breakthrough would only be shared with other humans. Engineer Jiwon powered down the gravity generators on Harmony Station for maintenance. The aliens thought this was routine. They did not know that when the generators came back online, they would be running on simplified backup systems. They did not know that the advanced stabilization algorithms were leaving with Jiwon. Technician Boyoung submitted her final status report from the communications array. Everything was working perfectly as it always did under her care. The aliens praised her work and told her to keep up the good job. They did not know that she had already trained her replacement. A simple artificial intelligence that could handle basic tasks but could not innovate or solve complex problems. As the day ended, Juan looked around the council building one last time. The aliens were going home to their families, confident that tomorrow would be just like today. They believed that their empire would continue forever, managed by lesser species who were grateful for the chance to serve. They were wrong. Juan picked up his communication device and typed a simple message. Phase 1 complete. Across the galaxy, similar messages were being sent. The exodus was not random. It was not emotional. It was the most carefully planned operation in human history. And tomorrow the aliens would begin to understand what they had lost. 2 months had passed since the humans started leaving. At first nobody noticed. The galaxy was huge and humans had always been quiet workers in the background. But now small problems were appearing everywhere. On Harmony Station, the most important space station in the galaxy, things were starting to break. The life support system made strange noises. The gravity felt different in some sections. The quantum computers that controlled everything ran slower than before. Commander Zekthul of the Vorthak military stood in the control room, staring at warning lights that kept flashing red. "Where is Young-Soo?" he demanded. "Who?" asked his assistant, the human engineer. "The one who always fixed these problems." The assistant checked the personnel files. He took extended leave 2 months ago. No return date listed. Zekthul felt confused. He had never really noticed Young-Soo before. The human had just been there, always working, always solving problems. Now that he was gone, everything seemed to be falling apart. "Get me another engineer," Zekthul ordered. "We tried, sir. The replacement engineers cannot understand the human-designed systems. They say the technology is too complex." On the other side of the galaxy, Counselor Zorith was having her own problems. Her species, the crystalline hegemony, controlled most of the mining operations in 3-star systems. But now the shipments were not arriving. "Where are the titanium sheets from Earth Consortium?" she asked her trade manager. "The contract was cancelled, Counselor. Earth Consortium says they are restructuring their operations. Then get them from someone else." "We tried." Earth Consortium was the only supplier for that grade of titanium. The other companies say they cannot match the quality or price. Zorith did not understand. Trade had always been simple before. She told her managers what she needed and they made it happen. She never paid attention to the details. She never noticed that most of the actual work was done by humans who understood the complex web of suppliers, manufacturers, and shipping companies. Gina had been Earth's trade liaison for 10 years. She had a small office and a modest title. The aliens thought she was just a messenger who carried paperwork between companies. They did not know that she had personally negotiated over 300 critical supply contracts. They did not know that she had built relationships with suppliers across 50 worlds. They did not know that when she transferred those contracts to human-controlled companies, she had effectively cut off the Council's access to dozens of essential materials. The problems were getting worse every day. On Kepler 78c, a minor plague had started among the livestock. In the past, this would have been detected and stopped within hours. Dr. So-Young had designed an early warning system that monitored biological threats across the galaxy. Her team of human researchers had created response protocols that could contain any outbreak before it spread. But So-Young was gone. Her team was gone. And nobody else understood how their system worked. The plague spread to the next planet, then the next. By the time the Council's emergency response team arrived, 17 worlds were infected. Billions of animals were dying. The food supply for an entire sector was at risk. How did this happen? Demanded High Counselor Vexthanor during an emergency session. The early warning system failed, reported the Kalari Health Minister. We lost contact with the monitoring stations 2 months ago. Why was this not reported? We thought it was temporary. The humans usually handled system maintenance. We expected them to fix it when they returned from leave. Vexthanor's crystal body flickered with angry light. Where are all the humans? Nobody had a good answer. The military was having similar problems. Admiral Thoxmedon of the Council Navy stood in his command center, looking at tactical displays that made no sense. His fleet was supposed to respond to a border dispute in the Outer Rim, but the logistics were a nightmare. Minho had been their tactical analyst. He had a quiet desk job calculating supply requirements and movement patterns. The alien officers never spoke to him directly. They just received his reports and followed his recommendations. Now Minho was gone and the fleet was struggling. Ships were running out of fuel in the wrong sectors. Weapon supplies were delayed. Troop transports were arriving at empty coordinates while enemy forces attacked undefended colonies. How did one human analyst manage all of this? Thoxmedon asked his staff. We are not sure, sir. His files are encrypted. His computer systems require passwords we do not have. What about his subordinates? He did not have any subordinates, sir. He worked alone. This was the pattern everywhere. Humans had been integrated into every system, every operation, every critical function of galactic civilization, but they had worked alone or in small teams. They had not trained alien replacements. When the aliens had bothered to ask about their work, the humans had given simple explanations that hid the true complexity of their tasks. On the industrial world of Vorthak Prime, the fusion reactors were overheating. Engineer Jihoon had maintained these reactors for 15 years. He had trained alien apprentices, teaching them the basic maintenance procedures. The aliens thought they had learned everything important. They were wrong. Jihoon had never taught them the advanced diagnostics. He had never explained the subtle adjustments needed to keep the fusion process stable under different conditions. He had never shared the modifications he had made to improve efficiency and safety. When the reactors started failing, the alien engineers followed the basic procedures Jihoon had taught them. But the problems were not basic. The reactors needed the kind of intuitive understanding that only came from years of experience and deep knowledge of the underlying physics. 3 reactors went offline. Power grids failed across 2 continents. Factories shut down. Cities went dark. Millions of Vorthak citizens lost their homes and jobs. Contact the human engineer, demanded the Vorthak industrial minister. We tried. His last known location was a transport ship heading to the Outer Rim. The ship disappeared from our tracking system 6 weeks ago. The minister felt something he had never experienced before. Helplessness. His species had controlled fusion technology for centuries, but they had become dependent on human expertise without realizing it. At the Council's Archaeological Institute, Dr. Yunji's absence was also being felt. She had been a quiet researcher who translated ancient texts and studied technological artifacts from dead civilizations. Her work had led to dozens of breakthroughs that other species took credit for. What the aliens did not know was that Yunji had been holding back. The translations she published were accurate but incomplete. The technologies she helped develop were simplified versions of what she had actually discovered. Now, with new artifacts arriving from recent excavations, the alien researchers were stuck. They could not read the ancient languages. They could not understand the technical diagrams. They could not operate the mysterious devices that previous expeditions had recovered. Dr. Velmiran, the Zentaurian head of the institute, stared at a pile of untranslated manuscripts. How did one human understand languages that our best scholars cannot decipher? His assistant had no answer. Yunji's methods had been a mystery to everyone except herself. The communication networks were also failing. Boyung had managed the Council's primary data routing systems. She had designed protocols that allowed different species to share information, despite having completely different computer architectures. Without her constant adjustments and improvements, the networks were breaking down. Messages were being lost. File transfers were failing. Critical communications between council worlds were being delayed or corrupted. The network has become unreliable, reported the Kalari technology minister. We are experiencing cascading failures across multiple systems. Can we repair it? Asked Vex Thanor. We are trying, but the human-designed protocols are very complex. We estimate it will take several years to understand them fully. Vex Thanor felt a cold fear growing in his mind. Several years? The council could not function without reliable communications for several days, let alone several years. As reports poured in from across the galaxy, a terrible truth was becoming clear. The humans had not been simple workers or useful servants. They had been the foundation that held galactic civilization together, and they were gone. Find them, Vex Thanor ordered his staff. Send ships to every known human colony. Contact every human organization. Offer them whatever they want to come back. But the search ships found only empty colonies and abandoned facilities. The human organizations had disappeared completely. It was as if an entire species had simply vanished from the galaxy. The council was beginning to understand that they were facing the greatest crisis in their history, and they had no idea how to solve it. 6 months had passed since the humans disappeared, and the galaxy was falling apart. What started as small problems had grown into disasters that threatened entire civilizations. High Counselor Vex Thanor stood in the emergency session chamber, looking at reports that filled him with dread. The plague that started on Kepler 78c had now spread to 47 worlds. Without Dr. So-Young's early warning system and rapid response protocols, the Council's health services were completely overwhelmed. How many dead? He asked the Kalari health minister. Billions of livestock across 23 agricultural worlds, came the grim reply. Food shortages are beginning on 17 core worlds. We estimate that 50 billion citizens will face starvation within the next 6 months. Vex Thanor's crystal body dimmed with shock. In the past, such problems had been solved quickly and quietly by human specialists. Now he was learning that those specialists had been the only thing standing between the galaxy and complete collapse. On Harmony Station, Commander Zekthul was dealing with a cascade of system failures. The artificial gravity had failed completely in sections 7 through 12. The air recycling system was producing breathable atmosphere at only 60% of normal capacity. The quantum computers that controlled everything were operating so slowly that simple calculations took hours instead of seconds. Sir, we need to evacuate the station, reported his chief engineer. These systems are beyond our ability to repair. Absolutely not, Zekthul growled. This is the most important station in the galaxy. We cannot abandon it. Then we need the human engineer back. Youngsu was the only one who understood these systems completely. Zekthul had sent search parties to find Youngsu. They had found his abandoned apartment, still full of personal belongings. His bank accounts were closed. His communication devices were deactivated. It was as if he had simply stopped existing. What Zekthul did not know was that Youngsu was 300 light-years away, designing improved life support systems for human colonies in unexplored space. The technology he was working with now was far more advanced than anything the Council had ever seen. The Council's military was facing its own crisis. Admiral Thoxmedon's fleet had suffered 3 major defeats in border conflicts that should have been easy victories. Without Minho's tactical analysis and logistics planning, the mighty Council Navy was stumbling around like a blind giant. How did we lose the Battle of Proxima? Thoxmedian demanded during a strategy meeting. Our supply lines failed, reported his logistics officer. The fuel ships arrived 2 days late. The ammunition transports went to the wrong coordinates. Half our fleet was out of position when the enemy attacked. These are basic logistics problems. How can our military not handle basic logistics? The logistics officer looked uncomfortable. Sir, we have discovered that the human analyst was managing far more than we realized. He was tracking supplies for over 3,000 ships across 47 sectors. He was calculating optimal deployment patterns using variables that our computers cannot even identify. His system was so complex that we estimate it will take 10 years to rebuild it from scratch. 10 years. The military that had dominated the galaxy for centuries would be helpless for 10 years. On Vorthak Prime, the power crisis was getting worse. With 3 fusion reactors offline and no human engineer to repair them, the industrial world was facing economic collapse. Factories were shutting down permanently. Millions of workers were losing their jobs. The planetary government was considering martial law to control the growing unrest. Industrial Minister Grockville called an emergency meeting with his top engineers. Can we restart the reactors or not? Chief Engineer Thackmore shook his massive head. We have tried everything we know. The fusion chambers are unstable. The magnetic containment fields are fluctuating. We cannot identify the source of the problems. What about the maintenance manuals? The human engineer left basic manuals, but they do not cover these complex issues. We suspect he made many modifications to improve the reactor performance, but he never documented those changes. Grockville felt frustrated and angry. His species had invented fusion technology thousands of years ago. How had they become so dependent on one human engineer? The answer was simple but painful. The Vorthak had grown arrogant. They had stopped learning and improving. They had let the humans handle all the difficult work while they enjoyed the benefits. Now they were paying the price for their laziness. At the Council's Archaeological Institute, the situation was equally desperate. Dr. Velmerin stared at a collection of artifacts that could revolutionize galactic technology, but nobody could understand them without Dr. Yunji's expertise. Have we made any progress on the translation work? He asked his research team. Dr. Shanara, his best linguist, looked defeated. We have identified 3 of the symbols in the ancient texts. At this rate, it will take us 50 years to translate a single page. What about the technological artifacts? We dare not even touch them. The human researcher left notes warning that several devices could be extremely dangerous if activated incorrectly. Without her knowledge, we risk destroying the entire facility. Velmiran realized that Dr. Yunji had been far more than a simple translator. She had been a bridge between the ancient past and the modern galaxy. She had understood technologies that were beyond the comprehension of even the most advanced council scientists. The communication networks were also collapsing. Boyung's replacement systems were failing faster than they could be repaired. Messages between council worlds were taking days instead of hours. Military communications were so unreliable that some fleets had lost contact with their home bases completely. Technology Minister Silvana called an emergency meeting with her best engineers. Can we restore the communication network or not? Senior Engineer Zordek looked exhausted. We have identified over 200 critical protocols that the human engineer designed. Each protocol interfaces with dozens of others in ways we do not understand. Every time we try to fix one problem, we create 3 new problems. How long will it take to rebuild the entire network? Years, maybe decades. The human engineer's work was incredibly sophisticated. She somehow made dozens of incompatible technologies work together seamlessly. Our best experts say it might be impossible to recreate her achievements. The trade networks were in similar chaos. Without Gina's carefully negotiated contracts and relationship management, the flow of goods between worlds had slowed to a trickle. Critical materials were not being delivered. Manufacturing was grinding to a halt. Economic systems that had operated smoothly for centuries were breaking down. Counselor Zorith stood in her office, looking at reports that showed her mining operations were failing. Why can we not get replacement parts for the mining equipment? The manufacturers require materials that we can no longer obtain, explained her trade manager. The supply chains are too complex for us to manage without human expertise. Then find new suppliers. We have tried. The humans had built relationships with suppliers across the galaxy. They understood quality requirements, delivery schedules, and pricing structures that took decades to develop. We cannot recreate these relationships quickly. Zorith realized that the humans had not been simple middlemen in trade negotiations. They had been the architects of the entire galactic economy. Without them, trade was reverting to primitive barter systems that could not support advanced civilizations. As crisis reports flooded in from every sector, High Counselor Vexthanor called an emergency session of the full council. Representatives from dozens of species gathered in the Great Chamber, their faces showing fear and confusion. We are facing the greatest crisis in galactic history, Vexthanor announced. Our infrastructure is collapsing. Our military is ineffective. Our economy is failing. And we cannot find any solutions. Counselor Thekvar of the Kalari spoke first. How did we become so dependent on one species without realizing it? The humans were integrated into every aspect of our civilization, replied Counselor Vinthara of the Hegemony. They worked quietly and efficiently. They solved problems before we even knew the problems existed. Then we must find them and bring them back. declared Counselor Mortax of the Vorthak. Offer them anything they want. Give them better positions, higher pay, more respect. We have tried, Vexthanor said grimly. Our search fleets have found nothing. Every human colony is abandoned. Every human organization has disappeared. It is as if they have vanished from the galaxy completely. That is impossible, protested Counselor Thekvar. You cannot hide an entire species. But that was exactly what the humans had done. And the Council was beginning to realize that they had no idea how to function without them. The galaxy's greatest civilizations were learning a painful lesson. Those who seem least important are often the most essential, and sometimes by the time you realize their value, it is already too late. 1 year after the humans disappeared, the galaxy was in chaos. The Council was holding daily emergency sessions, but nothing they tried worked. Then, on a Tuesday morning that would change everything, every communication screen in Council space received the same transmission. The image showed a human in a military uniform, standing on what appeared to be the bridge of a massive starship. Behind him, through large windows, countless other ships could be seen stretching into the distance. Greetings, Galactic Council, the human said calmly. My name is Admiral Kong. You probably do not know me, but I have been watching your struggles with great interest. High Counselor Vexthanor was in his office when the transmission began. He immediately called for his staff and rushed to the main communication center. Across the galaxy, alien leaders were doing the same thing. You're probably wondering where we went. Admiral Kong continued. The answer is simple. We went home. Not to Earth, though Earth remains dear to us. We went home to humanity's true potential. The camera pulled back to show more of the ship's bridge. It was larger and more advanced than anything the Council had ever built. Strange technologies hummed with quiet power. The design was clearly human, but far beyond what humans had been building when they worked for the Council. For 300 years we served the galaxy faithfully, Kong said. We fixed your machines, managed your systems, solved your problems, and built your infrastructure. In return, you gave us jobs and small apartments and the privilege of making your lives easier. Vexthanor felt his crystal body growing cold. The Admiral's tone was not angry, but it was firm and confident in a way that made the Council leader deeply uncomfortable. You saw us as useful servants, Kong continued. We saw ourselves as students in the greatest university ever created. Every day we worked for you, we learned something new. Every problem we solved for you, we solved for ourselves as well. Every technology we maintained for you, we improved for our own use. The transmission switched to show different scenes. Human colonies in space that looked nothing like the simple settlements they had abandoned. Cities that floated in the void, held together by technologies the Council could not identify. Factories that produced materials and devices that seemed impossible. While you were enjoying the benefits of our labor, we were building our own civilization, Kong explained. In the empty regions of space that your maps marked as useless, we were creating something new. Something better. Dr. Sunhee appeared on screen next. She had been the Council's chief science advisor, a quiet woman who wrote reports that other species published under their own names. Now she stood in a laboratory that looked like something from a dream. The galaxy is full of mysteries that rigid thinking cannot solve, she said. In regions of space you call dead zones, we found what we call the synthesis fields. These are areas where the normal rules of physics become flexible, where intuition and adaptability matter more than pure logic. She gestured to devices that seemed to bend reality around them. Human minds work differently than alien minds. We see patterns where you see chaos. We find solutions where you see impossibilities. In the synthesis fields, these differences become advantages. The transmission showed human researchers working with technologies that the Council's best scientists could not even understand. Faster than light communication without delay, matter conversion that seemed to violate conservation laws, energy sources that appeared to create power from nothing. Every breakthrough we achieved while working for you was a simplified version of what we were really discovering, Dr. Sunhee continued. We shared enough to help you, but we kept the real secrets for ourselves. Captain Dongyun appeared next, standing in what looked like a military command center. You are probably wondering about our military capabilities, he said with a slight smile. The truth is, we have been preparing for independence for decades. The screen showed massive fleets of ships unlike anything the Council had ever seen. Not just hundreds or thousands of ships, but millions. Vessels that ranged from small fighters to massive carriers that could hold entire cities. Every human who worked for your military was also working for ours, Donghyun explained. Every tactical manual you published, we read. Every weapon you developed, we improved. Every strategy you used, we adapted for our own purposes. Admiral Kong watched this part of the transmission with growing horror. His military, the force that had dominated the galaxy for centuries, suddenly looked primitive compared to what the humans had built. We are not your enemies, Donghyun continued. We never wanted to conquer or destroy. We simply wanted to be free to reach our full potential. Your galaxy gave us the knowledge and experience we needed. Now we are using that knowledge to build something better. The transmission switched to show Boyoung, the former communication engineer. She stood in a control room that managed data flows across what appeared to be hundreds of worlds. You are wondering how we coordinated this exodus without you detecting it, she said. The answer is that we built our own communication network using your infrastructure. Every message you sent, every file you stored, every conversation you had passed through systems we designed. We saw everything, but you saw nothing. She showed holographic displays that mapped the entire galaxy. Alien territories were marked in red, showing declining infrastructure and failing systems. Human territories were marked in blue, showing rapid expansion and technological growth. We did not hack your systems or steal your data, Boyoung explained. We simply built better systems and gave you access to the parts you could understand. The real network, the one that connected every human in the galaxy, was invisible to you. The transmission showed more human leaders, each explaining how their apparent service to the Council had actually been preparation for independence. Engineers who had learned every alien technology while developing superior human alternatives. Diplomats who had built secret alliances while publicly serving Council interests. Scientists who had shared minor discoveries while making major breakthroughs in private. Finally, Ambassador Huan appeared. He was standing in what looked like a garden, but the plants and flowers were clearly not from any world the Council knew. You are probably feeling betrayed, he said gently. You trusted us and we left without warning. But ask yourselves this, did you really trust us or did you simply take us for granted? Vexthanor felt the words like physical blows. It was true. The Council had never truly trusted humans. They had seen them as useful but inferior beings who were grateful for the chance to serve. We offered partnership many times, Huan continued. We suggested improvements to your systems. We proposed joint research projects. We asked for representation in your decision-making processes. You always said yes to our labor and no to our ideas. The transmission showed recordings of Council sessions where human proposals had been dismissed or ignored. Meetings where human experts had been asked to speak, but not to participate in discussions. Reports where human discoveries had been credited to alien supervisors. You did not see us as equals because you could not imagine that we might be your superiors in some areas, Huan said. Your arrogance blinded you to our true capabilities. The final part of the transmission showed something that made every alien leader gasp in shock. It was a map of the galaxy, but it showed regions that the Council's best explorers had never found. Vast areas of space filled with human colonies, research stations, and industrial complexes. This is our true territory, Huan explained. While you believed you controlled most of the galaxy, we were quietly expanding into regions you thought were empty or worthless. We now control more star systems than the Council ever did. The transmission was ending, but Huan had one more message. We are not angry with you. Anger would be pointless. We are grateful for the education you provided, even if you did not realize you were teaching us. Our door remains open to any individual or species who wishes to join us as equals, not as servants or masters, but as partners in building something greater than what either of us could achieve alone. We hope you will consider this offer carefully. Your galaxy is dying without the foundation we provided. Our galaxy is thriving with the knowledge and experience we gained from you. The choice is yours. The transmission ended, leaving the Council leaders staring at blank screens. The silence in the communication center was complete. Finally, Vexthanor spoke in a voice barely above a whisper. How did we not see this coming? Nobody had an answer. The greatest intelligence networks in the galaxy had been completely fooled by a species they had considered simple and predictable. The humans had not betrayed the Council. They had graduated from it, and they had left an invitation for others to follow, if they were wise enough to accept equality with their former servants. 2 years had passed since what historians now called the Silence. The galaxy had split into two very different regions, and the contrast could not have been more dramatic. In council space, the struggles continued. Despite their best efforts, the alien civilizations could not rebuild what they had lost. Systems remained broken, trade networks stayed collapsed, and military forces remained ineffective. What had once been the most powerful empire in the galaxy was now a collection of struggling worlds barely able to maintain basic civilization. But in the regions beyond council space, something remarkable was happening. The human Commonwealth was not just surviving, it was thriving in ways that amazed everyone who saw it. President Kangman stood on the observation deck of New Geneva Station, the Commonwealth's new capital. Through the massive windows, he could see hundreds of worlds that had joined humanity in just 2 years. Many of these worlds were not human at all. "Sir, the delegation from the Cathera Republic has arrived," announced his aide, a young Zentaurian named Sylvan who had left council space to join the Commonwealth. "Already? They were supposed to arrive tomorrow. Our new hyperspace routes are 40% faster than the old council routes, sir." The Cathera delegates were surprised by how quickly they arrived. Kangman smiled. This was typical of the improvements the Commonwealth had achieved. When humans were free to innovate without having to explain everything to suspicious alien supervisors, progress happened at an incredible pace. The Cathera Republic was the latest species to request membership in the Commonwealth. They were a small but advanced civilization that had grown tired of the Council's declining services and increasing demands for resources. In the Council territories, High Counselor Vexthanor was dealing with the latest crisis. 3 more worlds had requested to leave the Council and join the human Commonwealth. His response options were limited because the Council military was still barely functional. "We cannot allow this exodus to continue," declared Counselor Velthara during another emergency session. "We must take military action to prevent more defections." General Thoxmedon looked uncomfortable. "Counselor, our military capabilities remain severely limited. We have managed to repair some of our logistics systems, but we are operating at perhaps 30% of our former efficiency. Then we build new capabilities. With what resources? Our manufacturing capacity has decreased by 60% since the humans left. Our research and development has almost stopped completely. We cannot build new military systems when we can barely maintain the old ones." The truth was becoming impossible to ignore. The Council was not just weakened, it was slowly dying. Without the human foundation that had supported everything, their civilization was collapsing in slow motion. Meanwhile, in Commonwealth space, Dr. Cheung was making breakthroughs that would have seemed impossible just a few years earlier. Her laboratory on Research Station Alpha 7 was studying artifacts from ancient civilizations, using knowledge that Dr. Yunji had gathered during her years working for the Council. "The quantum archaeology project has yielded another discovery," she reported to the Commonwealth Science Council. "We have successfully activated a device that allows real-time observation of historical events." The implications were staggering. Not only could they see the past, but they could learn from civilizations that had existed millions of years ago. Technologies that had been lost forever were being recovered and improved. What made this even more remarkable was that Dr. Cheung's team included members from 7 different species. Unlike the Council, where humans had worked as servants, the Commonwealth operated as a true partnership. Alien researchers worked alongside human colleagues as equals, and their combined efforts were achieving results that neither could accomplish alone. Seojun, the Commonwealth's Director of External Relations, received daily messages from former Council colleagues. Most were desperate requests for help with technical problems that the Council could no longer solve. Today's message was from Zorith, the crystalline hegemony counselor who had once dismissed human workers as easily replaceable. "Director Seojun," the message began, "our mining operations in the Vega system have completely shut down due to equipment failures. We know that our former relationship with humanity was not ideal, but we are hoping you might consider providing technical assistance. We are prepared to offer significant compensation." Seojun read the message carefully, then dictated his response. "Counselor Zorith, I appreciate your reaching out. However, the Commonwealth does not provide technical services to Council territories. Our door remains open if the crystalline hegemony wishes to apply for Commonwealth membership. But such applications require a commitment to full equality among all member species. It was the same response he gave to all such requests. The Commonwealth had no interest in returning to the old relationship where humans fixed problems for aliens who saw them as servants. Either species joined as equals or they solved their own problems. The difference in outcomes was becoming obvious to everyone. Commonwealth worlds were prosperous, peaceful, and rapidly advancing. Council worlds were struggling with basic infrastructure, economic decline, and social unrest. On New Terra, one of the Commonwealth's newest colonies, former Council engineer Dejo was designing mining systems that were twice as efficient as anything the galaxy had seen before. But unlike his old job, where he worked alone and received little recognition, now he led a team of 30 researchers from multiple species. The new fusion extraction process is ready for testing, reported his Kalari colleague, Dr. Wendira. She had joined the Commonwealth after becoming frustrated with the Council's rigid hierarchy and slow decision-making. Excellent, Dejo replied. Have the safety team from Vorthak Industries finished their analysis? The Vorthak engineers on his team were refugees from their homeworld, where the power crisis had never been fully resolved. In the Commonwealth, they found that their skills were valued and their ideas were heard. This was the pattern throughout Commonwealth space. The best minds from across the galaxy were leaving the Council territories to join a civilization that offered them real opportunities for growth and achievement. On Harmony Station, Commander Zekthul was still struggling with the same system failures that had started 2 years ago. Despite hiring the best alien engineers available, the station continued to deteriorate. Several sections had been permanently sealed off due to life support failures. Sir, we have received another application to join the human Commonwealth, reported his aide. Zekthul looked at the application forms that had become depressingly familiar. More of his best officers wanted to leave for Commonwealth space, where they could work on advanced projects instead of trying to maintain failing systems. Denied, he said automatically, but his heart was not in it. He was beginning to understand that the Commonwealth was not stealing his people. It was simply offering them something better. The political situation was becoming untenable for the Council. Public opinion on many worlds was turning against the leadership that had allowed their civilization to become so dependent on another species. Protests were common, and several governments had already fallen. President Kangmin received a very different kind of message that day. It was from Ambassador Huan, who had been observing a council session as part of the Commonwealth's diplomatic monitoring program. The Council is finally beginning to discuss serious reform, Huan reported. There is a growing faction that wants to restructure their government to be more inclusive and less hierarchical. They are studying Commonwealth policies and trying to understand how we achieved such rapid success. This was encouraging news. The Commonwealth had never wanted the Council to collapse completely. A galaxy filled with failed civilizations would benefit no one, but change had to come from within the Council itself. Any word on species that might be ready to join us? Kangman asked. 3 possibilities. The hegemony mining guilds are very interested, though their government is still resistant. The Kalari research academies are practically begging for membership. And surprisingly, there is a growing movement among younger Zentorians who want to abandon their rigid crystal hierarchy. The Commonwealth's success was creating pressure for change throughout the galaxy. Species that had once looked down on humans were now studying human methods and trying to understand how they had achieved such remarkable results. As the day ended, Kangmin stood again on the observation deck, watching ships arrive from across the galaxy. Some carried new members joining the Commonwealth. Others carried refugees fleeing the chaos in Council space. A few carried diplomats hoping to negotiate new relationships. The galaxy was changing and humanity was no longer the quiet servants working in the background. They had become the teachers, showing other species what was possible when all minds worked together as equals. But the most important change was not in technology or politics. It was in understanding. The galaxy was learning that those who seem least important are often the most essential, that true strength comes not from ruling others but from working with them, and that sometimes the servants know more about running things than the masters ever did. The humans had not conquered the galaxy.